everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of High Fidelity, a film that I absolutely adore, a drama, a coming-of-age film, even though everybody in the movie are already adults. The reason why I call it a coming-of-age film is, to me, this movie is all about these adult people basically coming to realizations about their lives and realizing their faults and going through a kind of transformation where they embrace a more mature way of looking at their lives. And yes, everybody in this movie, with the exception of a couple of tangential characters, are all very much adults, so it's kind of a stretch calling it that, but I feel like it really plays on the theme of a coming of age movie. So I feel like you could really kind of put it in that category, even though it doesn't entirely make sense. A movie that stars John Cusack in basically the major role. He's in almost every single moment of this film. Essentially, he plays this guy who he runs a record store, and he loves music, and all of his life is based around music and making top 5 lists and categorizing his life in kind of a much more analytical way, but at the same time making gigantic mistakes and kind of looking back at his life and thinking, how did I mess up all of these relationships? Because he's recently had another major relationship fall apart, and he's reflecting on why all of these things keep happening to him, and he's looking at his life and he's looking at his loves, and it's a very interesting tale. He's very immature in a lot of moments. Like he makes a lot of decisions that are, as a viewer, you're like, wow, that you know, he's definitely not a character to look up to. I mean, there's parts of his life that a lot of people would probably be envious of, like the fact that he owns a record store and gets to sit around talking about music all day long, or his massive record collection, or the relationships that he does have with his friends, and all that kind of stuff. There's elements of his story that are very compelling, for sure, but at the same time, he makes such rash decisions that you cannot look up to him in every way, and in some ways you can really look down on him, which I think is very, very interesting for a protagonist and something you don't see on film nearly enough. And I think this movie has one of the most stellar casts out there. I mean, I'm going to try to touch on some of them, and some of them I can't talk about because I don't want this video to be 18 minutes long, but the woman who plays his most recent love interest, I do not know her name off the top of my head, or more accurately, I have it in front of me, but I just don't know how to spell it, to pronounce it, I should say, Ibn Hajij. Yeah, I'm sure that's not even remotely correct, but either way, it baffles me that she didn't have a much bigger career after this. I think she was fantastic in this film, and you could totally understand why his character was so smitten with her, and just would have done whatever he could have to keep her in his life, because she does come off as just really, really cool and intelligent, and like she's getting her stuff together, and I think she does a phenomenal job in this film. And Jack Black, this is the first movie that I really took note of him back in the day, and he is just so much fun in it. He's one of his employees at his store, extremely opinionated and over the top, and basically he's Jack Black in a record store, but he's fantastic in the film. He has a moment where he's singing at the end of it, which, you know, as a Tenacious D fan, is really, really cool. And you know, there's no comedy to it, but it's really awesome to see him singing on film like he has in a couple other movies, and he does a great job. And you have one of his other employees is a very kind of withdrawn character played by an actor by the name of Todd Luizzo, and I think he does a fantastic job as well. And he's very specific. I don't feel like he's an actor that you can, you know, plunk him in a lot of different roles, but I think he did his job in this movie admirably. And of all the characters, of the supporting characters, he's one of the ones that you kind of come to care about the most, because he's very easily put upon, and you want to see him kind of get ahead, and so I loved his character. Then he goes through a number of his past relationships, several of them that I'm not going to touch on, but Catherine Zeta-Jones plays one of his ex-girlfriends, and I think she does a great job in this movie because at first blush, I mean, she's just such a gorgeous, gorgeous woman that you're like, wow, how did he land her? How did he possibly mess that up? Like, why wouldn't he do everything in his power to make? And then as this movie progresses, where you find out that he really put her up on this pedestal, and that's how he really messed a lot of things up, and where you kind of over the following sequences with her, you find out that she is kind of pretty vapid and her very superficial and skin deep, and she's much more concerned about appearances than actual, you know, getting to the heart of her. And then but then at the same time, there's a scene that comes afterwards where that kind of gets all thrown out the window. That's just, you realize that's just how she's kind of conducting herself. But there's a moment where they kind of have a heart to heart, and she really challenges him on a lot of who he is, and you figure out that she also, you know, has a lot of thoughts on things. So she is not necessarily very forthright with them because she is so concerned about appearances. So I thought her character was very well written and very, very interesting. You have Lisa Bonet, who is, of course, an actress that, I mean, I since I was a kid, I had a crush on her. I thought she was absolutely gorgeous, and his character basically becomes smitten with her. She's a record producer, and even though he has gotten out of this relationship that he cares much more about, starts to wrap himself up in her world as well, and you can see how he messes up relationships because he does put this premium on her because she is so gorgeous, and would make the same mistakes with her that he made with other women, basically jumping to her because he can't have 2 feet in any relationship. He has to have one halfway out the door, and I think she does a great job in this movie because she is so effortlessly charming and charismatic that you can, to a minor degree, understand why anybody would be like, wow, who wouldn't want to be with her? But at the same time, you know, your mind kicks in and you're like, dude, if you're trying to get this girl back, you can't be doing that kind of stuff. So I think she's a fascinating character. And of course, John Cusack, like in a lot of his films, involves his sister, Joan Cusack. And even though she does join a lot of the cast of his films, I do not think that that's a problem at all, because I always find her just completely fascinating on film, and she does a great job in this. There's a moment where she runs into his record store and confronts him on a lot of his BS that is just so fantastic, because, you know, she has this look of like pure anger and justifiably so, after in a previous scene being like, I'm gonna side with you, that I thought was great. And Tim Robbins has a very small role in this, and is just so great as a kind of like the hippie guy who becomes involved with the girl that he was breaking up with, and it's great because he has that kind of Tim Robbins presence where, you know, he's very entertaining to watch on film. He's a fantastic actor, but at the same time, his character is one that is very annoying and does things that you can completely understand why somebody would A, be with him, or B, hate him. And I think that's really great. I mean, overall, I absolutely love this. There's multiple moments where they break the third wall, and you can see, or fourth wall, I should say, and John Cusack directly addresses the camera, which I think are cool. And a lot of those are when he's making his top 5 lists about his life, about music, and there's a reason why the top 10 lists and all that kind of stuff are so popular online. I know as a guy who writes them, because they are entertaining to look at and discuss and decipher, and to see him on film make up all these lists on the spot, I think is another one of the strengths of this movie. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's it has a very mature look on life, and marvelous performances, and fantastic writing, and flawed characters, and I just think it's must-see viewing for anybody who loves music, loves dramatic films, loves stories, loves coming-of-age films. So those are my thoughts on this film. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, if you feel the same way, if you hate it, if you haven't seen it, if it sounds interesting, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people will come check this video out, which is something I would absolutely love, because I love talking to people about movies. And if you are new here, please, or you just haven't done it yet, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. It'll let you know when I put out a new video, and you can be one of those people I talk films about, and that would just make my day. Other than that, have yourself a good day.